Hey y'all, you're listening to the Legacy, Lyrics, and Life podcast. I'm your host, Shawna Wells, your legacy architect. Welcome. This is the podcast where we'll uncover what legacy really means and the impact we can all have when we are present. Let's get started. All right, y'all. Today we have one of my most cherished friends and colleagues and coaches. She's a mom. She is devoted to rest, as she will share with you. She is hilarious in her own right. She's smiling at me right now. She's like, I am hilarious. She is a warrior for good, and she carries the ancestors with her, and that is clear. Her name is Octavia Raheem, and I am honored to have her join us today to talk a little bit about legacy, to laugh, maybe cry, and to hear. I am so excited to hear what your lyric is going to be at the end of this interview, the lyrical queen. So welcome to our conversation today, Octavia.
Thank you for having me.
Octavia, will you share a little bit about who you are? Not the one that we can like Google your name and look up, but like, who are you? Who are you people?
I can do that, and I'll start with my name. The writer Sandra Cisneros says to say the name is to begin the story. And you said my name, and now I've gotten into the habit of saying my full name. I've become that person. So my full name is Octavia Faith Ann Raheem. And for me, it's become more and more essential to say my full name because I carry the names of all my grandmothers. And this past February, my last remaining grandmother, Aura Faith, passed away. She transitioned. And in that moment, I'd never used faith. In that moment, I reclaimed faith, or she told me I better, right? And what I also realized is that when I say my name, because I carry the names of my grandmothers and my mothers, I am invoking their essence, their spirits, their light, and their wisdom. Just in saying my name, I'm pouring a libation, a verbal one. I'm Octavia. I am Faith. I am Ann. And those women are all of the American South, most recently, Georgia. And all of those women lived in a place and time that we think we can imagine, but we cannot. One of them, Faith, lived to be 98, so she's seen many turns in history. But from Octavia, I get what I understand. She passed away when I was 2 months old, but what I get from Octavia is determination, like a solid, grounded way of being. Many tell me that she was a woman of a few words, but when she spoke, the crickets listened. Everything in all of creation listened. And the story they tell me about Octavia is that she would tuck all her money and peppermints up in her bra. And I don't know why that's interesting to me, but just like that this person's walking around with like all of your wealth is in your bosom. But why are the peppermints there? What does that mean to you? And then Faith is a woman that if we go on and talk about her, I've had this experience that when people pass, it's also like something that maybe I hadn't touched or understood about them in their life just becomes revealed or much more apparent, or I can see their threads in me in ways that I wasn't able to see when they were embodied. And Faith, my paternal grandmother, who lived to be 98, went to every state in the United States except for one or two, I believe. And I think about her being who she was, from where she was. How did she find a way to get to every state? And most of the time she was going to play bingo, right? Like, she just had, if you were getting in your car going somewhere, she would go, where y'all going? And she just would take off down the road with you. And when she passed, I was in this inquiry around like, what is it that I want to tell her that maybe she didn't know? And to shorten the story, I just essentially was like, thank you for taking me on the trips. But I've since just thought, how did she find ways to like move through the country? And she went to other countries. I'm like, how did she do that? And just a quick story about Faith. And if you could see me, I have these red nails, right? I've never worn nail polish. And this year, it's been like a gift that her spirit gave me. It was like, girl, put some polish on, right? But she grew up in Livonia, Georgia, and was one of about 14 or 15 children. And usually you got to a certain age very young and you were pulled out of school to go pick cotton. And she would tell this story where her time to pick cotton came, and whoever the man was that said, "You're going to go pick cotton, you're of the age." She's really sassy, right? And she held up her hands and said, "You see these nails? I'm not breaking these nails for you and no cotton." And for whatever reason, right, she didn't have to pick cotton. And she told me, she was like, "I'm not breaking my nails for anyone." And I'm like, if you're tracking the story, she was 98 this year when she passed. So to be 8 or 9 and say, "Not picking cotton, not breaking my nails," and for whatever reason, not do it. And she was very proud. She was like, "I ain't picking no cotton." Good for the folks who did, but I didn't. And so that's Faith. And then Anne is of Annie Mae, my maternal grandmother, who I did not meet, and whose face I am told I carry, and whose spirit I am told is strong in me, and who was a church mother and a cake baker and cleaned houses for a living, but also found a way to own land, maintain that land, and that land is still in my family to this day. So you cannot Google that, right? I am from Gainesville, Georgia. I am Octavia Faith and Raheem. And to say my name is truly to both begin the story and to continue the story of the really ingenious, creative, and brilliant women that I come from.
I'm honored to meet them through you. Truly.
Thank you.
As you're sharing, I'm like, dang, you're carrying lineage with you.
I
And
am.
the faith of that, you kept saying faith, and I was like, oh, yeah, that's our grandmother's name. But the faith of the lineage that you carry is also something that is arriving as you're talking.
Yes. Yeah.
I am obsessed with this word legacy. And I think part of our work as Black women in this generation is to really think about, with an element of liberation that the women who came before us didn't have, the legacies we aim to live and leave. And as you tell this story, I'm like, except the women in our lineage knew some stuff, right? Like, I'm not messing these nails up.
I mean, she was get somebody else to do it. And with a lot of honey, she would tell you something that might get somebody else taken off this earth and laugh and keep walking. Don't follow me. What I'm sensing in your direction is, I'm thinking about Sankofa, this go back and get it. And that even as we, in our current lives and bodies, make some things right, because there are many wrongs in history. Heal is the word I would use. There's healing that I'm doing in my lifetime that I fully know impacts 7 generations back and 7 generations forward. But even as I do what is sometimes excavating work and clearing work and healing work, it's so essential to me to remember the gold, and to use a cliche, to not throw the baby out with the water, to not throw the baby out with the dirty water. Because I think some prepackaged narratives we get about where we're from is this down in the belly of the beast struggle situation. And if we dig in more deeply and we look more closely, we are as we are and upright because they had a level of brilliance, a level of subversion, a level of you can't break my soulness that was going on. And I live in a light of how do I pull that forward if we inherit, or if there can be generational, intergenerational trauma, that means there's medicine too, right? If we can inherit the pain and suffering and all of that from through the line, we can also inherit the gifts, the faith, the magic, the wisdom, the music, the song, all of that too. That's how I feel it. That's how I see it.
What's got me thinking, Octavia, as you're sharing, is the braiding of the names that you carry and the women that you carry that will never be replicated again. And you get to carry them in this moment. So as you think about carrying the robustness of all of the women who came before you and men, what does it tell you?
It tells me that I'm here on time. That's a beautiful question. What does it tell me? The image that just came to mind is a river. And I know this from Alice Walker, but I don't think it was her. She's not the originator of the statement. You can't step in the same river twice. And what it tells me is that I am here in this kind of river of time, or thread of time, or braid of time. I like that you said that. in this form for a really specific purpose that I'm still unraveling. As I was thinking about this conversation today, I was like, legacy's not in stone. It's adaptive, it's emergent, like it's shape shifting. But I am here with a purpose that continues to be revealed. And my being here is like the grounding point for someone else's being, right? That's a lot of words. But I just have this, like, I'm like, I flow through the river of time. I am here while I'm here to be. And then the river keeps running and someone else will be here. And I'm also thinking about the word carry. And I do carry the names. I also have this sense of walking with, right? Walking with my ancestors and being carried as I carry what is mine, and also through my rest work, really starting to discern what is mine to carry, what is theirs to carry, what, when, and what to carry forward.
You said walk with, and I got this image of us walking with our legacies. What does it mean to actually walk with our legacies instead of like over engineer or write it and say, I have to do this, I have to be driven by to make your legacy a to-do list?
So there may be lists and scrolls, right? And yeah, walking with. I think about the path being made as we walk it. In this one sense, one way I understand something to be my path is that there aren't footprints on the ground already, right? I'm making it one step at a time, but I'm also not alone in that making of the step because I walk with the light and wisdom of my ancestors, and I'm also carried by it. As I was thinking about legacy today, I resisted looking up the etymology of it. I love the lineage of words is how I think about etymology, but I didn't look it up. I just was like, how do I understand it? And Shawna, mine, it feels so simple. So yesterday I was with a client and she said, my shoulders softened on Monday when I knew that I was talking to you on Thursday. And this seems so simple, but I was like, I want that to be my legacy, that people say in her presence, I was safe, I was held, I could breathe deeper. Because where on this planet can Black folks and people of color consistently say, I was safe, I was held, and I could breathe deeply? And I'm like, I want to be that kind of home base. I want when people are reflecting on what did Octavia do here? She loved us. This seems very simple, but I'm like, that causes me to wake up and engage with myself and with those I encounter in a really specific way, in a very intentional way. It causes me to be a lover of lists, but also not to heavily rely on the list because something might emerge that's not on the list that I need to attend to with love and with deeper presence than if I'm just being doggedly pushed forward or motivated by some script or list.
You said, I think 3 times, you said it sounds so simple. Is it?
It's not in this grand sense. I know it's not simple, depending on the orientation of the listener. To be like, my legacy is love sounds really simple. You mean it's not this? I also was thinking about this conversation, really made me think about words and poems and language. And I was thinking about Erica Badu's They Won't Be Naming No Big Buildings After Me to Go Down Dilapidated. I said, Erica tried to tell us, but I think a lot of times, and it's no shade, no judgment, and a lot of times we're constructing legacies. I want my name on that building. That building won't be sustained. What will be here long past any building? This dirt, these trees, the fragrance of your spirit, the essence you left in the rooms and on the hearts of those who you encountered, right? And so I know it's not simple. I know that it can sound simple depending on, I don't know who's going to hear this and how it lands on their ears. And do I have like goals and ambition and all of that? Yes. And I actually rest and work now to not let any of that stuff take precedent over my presence with love and with the people that I'm blessed to rest and work with these days.
You can preach on that building piece, right? Like I can tell you what we have in common is that we look up words. That is the thing we have in common. Whenever you say that, I'm like, I know. And so legacy is a word that's often associated with stuff. It's often associated with money, with material things, the things we pass on to our children or people that are in our care. And I call BS on that, right? It is the essence of what you leave behind and who you have been and the inertia that you cause while you've been here. And that's in this world, I think, a hard thing to embrace. So as you talk about this word love, and Sister Bell Hooks would tell us, she wrote a whole book about the overcomplicate, like the
Many, right? All about love, salvation.
so you've arrived in a place, and I heard you say, I'm not done yet. I'm constantly rewriting my legacy. It's more moving. What's hard about the legacy that you've tried to start to embody?
It goes against the grain of pretty much everything, except for nature and the organic flow, like what we've constructed as life. This been like, I'm prioritizing presence. How do we feel together? I'm thinking about a legacy rooted in stewardness of the earth because I'm like, y'all, if I got all this stuff, but the earth is on fire, what does it matter? What am I, all those kinds of things. And it goes against the grain. And so, I battle with my own doubt. Like sometimes I go, are you nuts? There's real life. Like I have a mortgage, right? I do want my child to inherit some things that won't create hardship in his life. On that level, I'm like, that is real, right? And so for me, it's not even about finding balance. It's more about being in a harmonious relationship with all these levels of awareness that I have. But the challenging part is that I feel like I wake up and I'm making conscious choices that go against the grain. And some of it goes against who I even was like 15 years ago. It's causing me to become comfortable with this kind of, it's not attention, maybe discomfort is the word. I don't know the exact word right now, of being like, is a daily, almost choice by choice commitment I'm making that my legacy will be that I have a well regulated nervous system and that I can share that with humanity, that I'm a well rested Black woman, not an exhausted one. I wake up and go, okay, what choice supports that? What doesn't? And I backslide. Right? It's not like some linear point A to B thing. So I would say, yeah, the challenge is I have to be in the choice every decision of the day.
Yes.
It's
Yeah.
a practice. Legacy building is a practice, right?
Get that on a t-shirt. Legacy building
Come
is
on now. What colors? What colors?
it reminds me as you're talking, Whitney Houston had this song, Step by Step.
Yes.
And every time people ask me the question, how do I engineer this? I'm like, you're taking it step by step, right? Like you are using the legacy to filter what is the next decision that I want to make in alignment. And I have a choice every time to recommit to however you define your legacy. What do you think about as I share that? Besides Whitney Houston is a queen.
I know I'm going to resist singing step by step. So, when you were talking, I was thinking about and feeling into how truth has a vibration, there's a resonance. And you said something really powerful using your emergent but legacy vision as the lens through which you're filtering and making choices. And I was just thinking about how we can know something's a yes or know something's a no and still make choices that go against that. That's really what I was thinking about. I was like, and what is that? What causes us to make choices that are not in service of our kind of this deeper legacy and vision? And I was thinking about fear and habit and patterns. And then how do you interrupt those patterns? And then the answer was really simple. I was like, you interrupt the pattern by not doing what the pattern tells you to do. Like if the pattern is I build other people's legacies, not mine, or build others at the expense of myself, right? Because we can be collaborative, but I'm going to go out on a limb and say most of us have had experiences where we're like, in yoga, we would call it trying to live somebody else's dharma. Dharma being deep divine purpose. Like I'm over here trying to do your thing, but I'm not at the expense of my thing. And so if that's like a habit or a pattern or like a condition you've been in, the way you get out of it is do the opposite of it. That's what I was thinking about as you talked about filtering things through the lens of legacy vision, because the thing that happens is on this one level, possibility can expand. On this other level, though, things get narrow because the clarity comes, not this, but that, not this, you have, and to stand in that choice, and it's going to look like crazy on a rainy day sometimes, right? Like everyone's not going to understand when you're following the luminosity of your legacy vision versus something else.
You said so much there. I got this image of wearing a coat that was too big for you. And we've all done that. Like, oh, that coat's cute. I like how it looks here. They don't have it in my size. Okay, I'll just wear a different coat. It's not, you shouldn't
Or
be.
too tight and you can't zip it up. I've been on that side. I've been on both those sides. Or someone gives it to you and you're like, this thing is nice.
Yes.
Ain't no reason to throw this out or take it to the Goodwill. I'm going to try to make it work. So you sitting up with half an arm, can't zip the jacket, or you're being swallowed by it because it's not yours to wear.
Yes. And the discomfort that happens, like your preoccupation actually that happens
Yeah.
in something that ain't right for you.
Come on now. I just had the vision, like this is a true story, when I'm like, I could just suck it in and zip it. Like I'm obsessed with the zipper. I just take this at the preoccupation with trying to make something fit or maneuver around or in, or just, yes, the
Yes.
preoccupation that comes. That's a great metaphor. Trying to wear somebody else's legacy.
Trying to wear somebody, you're like, it's too big. You're trying to wear someone else's legacy or it's too small. And it can be confining or confusing. And that clarity, I love what you said about when we're clear, other people might think you're out of your mind, right?
That's right.
And you're clear. You're clear. What are the signs in your life when you know something? You're like, no, girl, that is in misalignment with the legacy you're trying to leave.
So I'm a really intentional, deliberate, and thoughtful person. This is very personal, right? When I get into overthinking, I'll be like, wait a minute now. Cause the answer is no. And then I have to try to be like, what is this? Overthinking feels different from I'm being intentional, I'm being deliberate, I want to make all of these things. But for me, when it's my mind can't catch a break from the overthinking about something, like say a potential, I'll say opportunity, but ultimately it wouldn't be an opportunity for me because it's not mine to do. So that's one sign. I don't want to say a gut sense. There are some things that I'm just like, yep. Like there, it feels like there's no rumination. And one example is like in 2020, we all remember 2020. And I self-published my first book, Gather, and then I started to get all these messages and communications and all this outreach and all this wanting to collaborate. And my inbox, it started to be like overwhelming. And some of it, I was like, how do I know? Like, I like to respond to people. I don't want to just be non-responsive, but some stuff I'd be like, no, answer. And so I just started to filter through things and also decided that I didn't personally have to respond to every single thing, but I still would try to look at most things. And most things, I would say 99% of what landed in my inbox in 2020, I was like, no. Like, just no, nothing in my bones, nothing in my body. I pay attention to my breath. Do I breathe like deep? Like I usually inhale when I'm like, that's right. But I got this one message from this one person, and I didn't really know the person, right? Like I know her now, but I didn't know the person. I read it, and I was like, that's so curious. So a curiosity was sparked. I started in my inbox. I didn't respond immediately, but I also didn't ruminate on it. It just settled. Like I read what her offering or request was, and I was like, that is so curious. And then it was just very easy for me to go back and go, yeah, I'll talk to you. So on there's one level, there was like, it's not a lot of overthinking. A sense of curiosity is there. And also a sense of knowing is there. And then I pay attention to the somatic cues because the body has so much wisdom. To use the compass of the body to help us make decisions, we have to re-inhabit the body. Meaning we have to reconnect to the body because most of us have been conditioned to ignore the messages and signals of our bodies. no's, right? So most of us push through so many no's in our body that now it's hard to access the wisdom. But at this point, called 2020, I had spent a lot of time being like, what does yes and no feel like in my body? What does curiosity feel like in my body? What does a way forward feel like in my body? And so that's part of how I just go, yep, that's it. And here's a wild thing. Why not be wild? We on the train now, honey. I have these rest practices, like I meditate, I practice restorative yoga. And what those practices help me do is settle, calm, and regulate my nervous system. And also in those practices, I will tell you insight comes. Like the house I live in, I saw an image of it in a rest practice and I had never seen the house. Right. And the thing is, this sounds like hocus pocus. And I'm like, I'm not special, right? I'm like, it's like some people that happens for them when they pray, they just get a clarity. They know, right? The song that comes to mind is Order My Steps, Lord. When you aren't hell bent on being the mover and you can recognize that we're really in collaboration with a lot, whether it be the divine, our ancestors, nature, all of that, then you can get these downloads about what's next. And as wild as it can seem, I often rely on the insights I gain in stillness to support me in being like, yes, that supports my legacy. This is the way to move forward. And I really look for like where there's curiosity versus dread. We know it. Do you ever read something, someone asks you something and you're like, it's not personal, but you just feel dread? We know. And I'm like, and to maintain, to survive for many of us, Black folk, there's a way that we have shut down the inner knowing. And a lot of my rest work is just, we got to bring those knowings back online because the next level of our evolution and to move from surviving to thriving demands that we have access to the wisdom that's in our bodies because every ancestor that we have is alive in our bodies right now in this
Yes.
very biological sense. And then every descendant that will be of blood and of water, right? Because some of us won't have biological descendants, like that's alive in us right now. So I'm like, we got to get in our bodies. We have to reconnect to the instrument that we have in our bodies to help us also access legacy.
What I hear right now in my like ringing is we have to get radically still and radically honest with
Yeah.
ourselves and our bodies to recognize when our legacy is speaking to us.
Come on,
Because
Minister Shawna.
it does, right? Like it's constantly talking to us, and we're like, nah, not that, nah, not that, because we're so consumed with somebody else's jacket sometimes.
You
Right?
know what I'm also hearing is you said to hear when our legacy is talking to us, which made me think about legacy. We're just going down this path, Lord. Legacy as a spirit, meaning we think we're creating legacy, and on some levels, it's creating us, right? Like there's this, it's a very relational thing. And that's what I mean when I say emergent. There are some things that I came here with, like, when I could hold a pen, I was writing, a pencil or crayon. And the mediums which I have used that to shape legacy continue to take different shape and to shape me, right? And so it's like we think we are writing legacies and they're writing us. It's a both and here.
Yeah.
So I just heard that when you said the legacy wants to speak to you. And I was like, it really does. Like it really does. And what it made me curious for the listener to like, how do they listen to their
Mhm.
legacy? How are they in dialogue with it versus just talking at it or to it?
Mhm. Yes. And what do you need, right? What do you
Yeah.
need to be in conversation with your legacy? Because we're so conditioned out of it, as you said,
Yeah.
and to be able to access the conditions that you need to hear a legacy as it speaks to you quietly, because at first it's quiet. It gets louder when you recognize it.
The still small voice, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Y'all are like all the listeners are witness to how conversations with Shawna and Octavia go. We could sit here and talk for 8 hours because uh, there's just something there, right? Just they're talking to each other while we're talking.
And
And
that's the truth. That's the truth too.
is the truth. They are lined up behind us. So I've been eager to hear what's the lyric that you would pull out from your legacy?
Shawna, I was like, lyric, can it be a poem? I'll tell you, a few things came. The most organic one that came up was a song I sung in church,
Mm,
This Little Light of Mine.
mm,
I'm gonna let it shine. And I have a visceral and very visual memory of grown men, little children, old one, like everybody in church singing it, like until it felt like their hearts turned into like a stream of light. Like it seems like a little child song, but when you see a grown Black man sang from the depths of his belly, this little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. And I remembered being like 4-year-old Octavia at Greater Timber Ridge Baptist Church and like not paying attention in church, but sitting upright every time that
mm,
song got sang. And your question made me think, what was it about that song that like struck me so deeply? And I had already understood at 4 years old that the world was going to try to steal my light. The world was going to do everything under its dilapidated power to try to dim my light. And just being rocked and held and sang to in this church, that this little light of mine, by any means, I'm going to let it shine. And then he gave it to me. I'm going to let it shine. You can't take it away from me. I'm going to let it shine. We add words to stuff. So those lyrics came, but then Moving Up in the World Like Elevators by Outkast came. And I remember again in my body the first time I heard that. And I said, oh, it's up from here, right? And then the last one was I Found God in Myself in
mm.
Tazaki Shunjay, and I loved her. I loved her fiercely. Um, that was beautiful to me because she told me exactly where to look and what I would find, but not necessarily how I would find it. And so those are you probably said one lyric, Octavia came with three.
Tell you about our people. They bring 97 lyrics. So I expected it. Because there isn't one, right? We
There
don't
isn't one.
name, we don't go by one story. We go by, right? Fair game. Octavia, it's always a pleasure to hang out with you
I
and
know.
be in conversation. So thank you for this time and for all the nuggets of your wisdom and for your light shining and helping me shine mine. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Legacy, Lyrics, and Life. We hope you'll join us on the next episode as we continue to expand and explore life through legacy. If you know someone else who would enjoy this show, be sure to share. Always a pleasure. Until next time.